Hey, what's up guys, CalmerCbot8714 here, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to achieve the frozen time effect that was in my previous video, my No More Bad TV Shows video. Here it is if you haven't seen it. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this in Adobe After Effects, and this really will work in pretty much any version of After Effects. So the first thing I did is this video, it's not actually a video, it's actually two pictures just placed together. So what I did is I took two pictures, so I have this one and I have this one. So I had my camera on a tripod and I just took one picture, moved it over and took the other picture, and so that way my actor stays completely still and I don't need to deal with camera tracking and whatnot, just because that would take a lot more time. So anyways, I have these two images that I shot in a raw format so I could make sure the colors were the same, and I shot all manual just so I could keep the colors the same and whatnot throughout the two shots. And then I stitched those two shots together using a program called PhotoStitch that came on the EOS disc, the accessory kind of disc that you get when you buy your camera. And basically you import, and you can really do this in anything, Photoshop, just anything where you can cut together two photos. And so you import your two pictures and you align them so it looks right. So this here, this looks like just a wider image, and you just click merge and start. It'll then create this merged image. Before you do that, just make sure that you have your focal length. So I was using a 50mm lens. Anyways, so we get this image here, and then we go to click save, and here these green lines is what it's going to save, because as you can see here, this white part at the top and bottom is just some issues that I had, so there's no point in just saving that the white at the top, just because it won't look normal. So you can choose that there, and then you just click save, and you end up with this. So here I have one large photo in pretty large dimensions, all shot and saved in a very high quality format so I don't lose quality. So then when we're done with that, we bring that into a new composition in Adobe After Effects. So my composition settings are, it's a 2500 pixels by 1500 pixels. It's a really large composition, and I finished rendering in 1920 by 1080. So I just created this large composition so I could add the camera movement effect later on. So I have this first layer here is just the large picture stitched together, and I really just animated this, set a keyframe for it here, go to the end and set another keyframe for it here. So it's just got this, as you can see the line, it's just got this movement going down. So next I just duplicated this, and I got this second one here, and I changed the blending mode to add, and if I turn that layer on, you can see that it creates this kind of light, which would be coming from a gun. The muzzle would be creating light. So then I just masked, here you can see the large image, but I just masked around certain areas that the light would affect, and that really just adds more realism to the effect, that light. So anyways, the next thing I added was just a muzzle flash, and the muzzle flash, you can just find it doing a quick search on Google. I just use this muzzle flash, change the blending mode to add, and just place that in there. And then what you're going to want to do is change so go to here, and you can either drag this down to here, or you can go here and change it to your image layer. And what this will do is it's going to parent it to that image layer. So any movement that your image layer does will also be applied to your footage that you composite in. So I then just added another muzzle flash just to add a bit more light, just a bit more visual, so it's more pronounced. Once again, parenting that to my image. The next thing I added was just a bullet. This once again can just be found on Google. Here you can see it's just a bullet with some smoke, and I composited that in, changing the blending mode to add and parenting it to the image. Next thing I added was a smoke layer, the smoke coming out of the gun and then trailing along to the bullet here. And the last thing I added was just another smoke thing, just to give it more realism. So when we have, once again, parenting these to your image. Alright, so once everything is added, we are left with this large composition of everything just moving across. And as you can see, there's some transparency up here that we will be getting rid of in our next composition. But what we're going to do now is just go to File, Export, Add to Render queue, and just render this out in a lossless format, something like an AVI, where we don't lose any of the quality. So you probably, like, for 6 seconds, this is 6 seconds long, and I have like a 2 GB file, but I mean, it's worth it because you're not losing the quality and it'll look a lot nicer. So next, I created a new composition, and this one I was going to export the full film in 1920 by 1080. So I have that there, and those are my composition settings. So I have the proper aspect ratio, and what I did is I just placed, as you can see, here's my large composition. I just placed it in. I'll make this smaller, but here you can see this is my video that I was left with from before, and as you can see up here, it has the black bars and whatnot. But so what I did is I just scaled that into place and made sure there was no black anywhere. So once we have our footage in and scaled to what we want it to be, you will see that it's just the video just goes straight down. Like, it looks very digital, because if this were to be like an actual frozen time effect, if it was possible, and somebody was holding a camera and videoing it, there would be camera shake, and it really just adds to the effect. So to add a digital camera shake in After Effects, we're just going to click this little down bar here, and then go to Transform, click that, and then go to Position. What we'll do is, holding Alt, we're going to click on the little time clock thing here, and this will create an expression, and what we're going to type in is wiggle, bracket, and then we're gonna have to set two factors here. So the first factor is going to be how many times it wiggles the camera moves in 1 second. So let's say 2, so it'll move twice in 1 second, comma, and then the second factor is how many pixels it will move by. So something like, let's say 100 will move very violently, but something like 15 will look maybe more normal. So just click onto that, and then when you render through your footage, you're going to see that your video now has a digital camera movement effect to it. And so as you can see, it's kind of got that digital camera, or it's got that kind of movement to it, that nice fluid movement, and that'll really add to your effect. So once that's done, we're just going to render this out, and again in a lossless format. But one thing that I did when shooting was I shot my video in 60 frames per second, and I rendered everything in 60 frames per second. So when I'm done and the final clip is kind of rendered out, I have the option to slow it down, because slowing it down makes it look even more nicer. So in here, this final video is about 6 seconds long, and I shot 60 frames per second. So when I'm bringing that down to 24 frames per second, I can slow it down to about 13 seconds in length, or I slowed it down to about 10 seconds in length, and that just creates a really nice fluid camera movement. And the final thing, I just added some black bars just to make it more, cinematic kind of feel to it, some color correction, and that's really what I did. If you have any questions about this tutorial, just feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them for you. And I hope you enjoyed watching them. If you did, please comment, rate, and subscribe to CBond8714.